If you were born poor in America, you now have a lower chance of escaping poverty than a child born in Romania. You heard that right. The so-called greatest country on earth now ranks last among developed nations in upward mobility. And it's not just a statistic. It's your rent doubling, your food shrinking, and your future disappearing. America has over 600,000 homeless people, but 17 million vacant homes. We have 1.1 million students in public schools who are technically homeless. And while you're rationing insulin, Wall Street made $77 billion in profit just last quarter. This isn't a recession. This is reality. For millions of Americans, the U.S. has already collapsed into a third world country, but with Netflix and credit scores. And if you feel like you're drowning while doing everything right, you're not broken. The system is. Let's break it down. From number 10 all the way to number 1. What's really happening to America and why you're not alone. Number 10. You can't even die in peace anymore. That's right. In the richest country in the world, even dying is a luxury. The average funeral in the U.S. now costs between $8,000 and $12,000, not including the plot, flowers, or obituary. Cremation? Sure, it's cheaper, but still often over $5,000, depending on where you live. If you don't have money saved or life insurance, your family is stuck scrambling to crowdfund your burial on GoFundMe or take out a personal loan while grieving. In fact, 1 out of every 3 GoFundMe campaigns today is for funeral expenses. Think about that. That's not a developed country. That's desperation disguised as community support. Meanwhile, in countries America calls developing, basic burials and cremations are often subsidized or cost a fraction of that. In Thailand, a full Buddhist funeral ceremony with food for dozens of guests might cost less than $300 total. And in many Latin American nations, community death benefits or public funeral services make sure no one is just thrown in debt after tragedy. But in the U.S., even hospice care is gated behind insurance approval. A hospital death? Expect surprise billing. In 2024 alone, families have received end-of-life ER charges exceeding $20,000 for just a few hours in a hospital. And here's the kicker. If your loved one dies at home without pre-arranged services, you can be charged hundreds just to transport the body. Even in death, you are a transaction. And if you're low income, forget dignity. You're handed bureaucracy, not comfort. It's a brutal reminder that America doesn't stop extracting from you even after your final breath. That's not what a first world country does. That's a system built to squeeze people until there's nothing left, and then squeeze a little more. Number 9. Public schools are collapsing into babysitting warehouses. Here's something you don't hear about on the news much unless there's a scandal. American public schools are falling apart. Not figuratively, literally. There are now over 24,000 public school buildings in the U.S., with critical infrastructure issues, crumbling ceilings, lead in the water, toxic mold in the walls, and bathrooms with no doors. And that's just the beginning. In 2023, teachers reported that over 53% of their classrooms lacked basic supplies: paper, markers, even toilet paper. Teachers are paying out of pocket just to provide materials, sometimes spending $1,000 or more a year on their students. And what do they get in return? Stagnant wages, larger class sizes, and parents who are just as exhausted as they are. The U.S. ranks 36th out of 79 developed nations in math, reading, and science scores, according to OECD studies. That's below Poland, Slovenia, and Vietnam. But here's the worst part. Even though schools are underfunded and teachers are overworked, American students still face more standardized testing than almost any country on earth. Kids are anxious, teachers are quitting, and districts are turning to AI grading tools and part-time substitutes just to limp forward. Meanwhile, in places like Finland or South Korea, nations often mocked for being too socialist, education is treated like an investment, not a line item. Smaller classrooms, no standardized tests until age 16, more recess. And guess what? Kids are thriving, teachers are respected, and nobody's arguing over whether kids should get free lunch. In America, we're still debating whether a hungry child deserves to be fed if their parent doesn't fill out the right form. That's not education. That's trauma management. And when your country treats its future like a cost burden, that's not first world. That's a failing state with Wi-Fi. Number 8. America's tap water is becoming poison. We've been told since we were kids that you can drink the tap water in the US. But in 2025, that's not always true anymore. Not by a long shot. More than 45 million Americans are drinking water that fails at least one EPA safety standard. And in some cities, especially in rural or low-income areas, the water isn't just dirty, it's toxic. Remember Flint, Michigan? That wasn't an isolated case. It was a warning. In towns across Louisiana, Mississippi, West Virginia, and even California, tests show lead, arsenic, PFS, forever chemicals, and radioactive elements like radium in household water supplies. The scariest part? Many of these communities don't even know it because testing is outdated or flat-out suppressed. In fact, a 2024 NRDC report showed that more than 70% of U.S. counties underreport their water quality problems. This isn't a problem limited to tiny towns either. Chicago's West Side, parts of Pittsburgh, rural Alabama, people are getting rashes, stomach issues, hair loss, and autoimmune reactions from their water. And yet the burden to prove the water is dangerous falls on you, the citizen. If you want safe water in 2025, you're told to buy a filtration system, which can cost hundreds of dollars. Then you're told to drink bottled water, which, by the way, costs 3,000 times more than tap, and 40% of bottled water in the US is just tap water in a plastic bottle. Meanwhile, across Europe and parts of Asia, countries invest in public water systems with constant monitoring, real-time reporting, and upgrades. In Germany, for example, PFAS levels are so tightly regulated that factories must shut down if they leach toxins into the water table. In America, companies negotiate settlements after people get cancer. We're not living in a country that protects people. We're living in a country that protects profit. And when even your drinking water might be poisoning you slowly, that's third world survival, dressed up in a first world flag. Number 7. There are no doctors left, just debt collectors in lab coats. Let's stop pretending the US has a healthcare system. What we have is a billing empire wearing a stethoscope. Today, in 2025, the average American family health insurance premium is over $24,000 a year. And that's not including co-pays, deductibles, or surprise billing. And here's the wild part. 43% of working-age adults are skipping medical care due to cost, even though many of them have insurance. That's right. Having insurance no longer means you can afford care. You still pay $50 for a prescription, $200 for a specialist visit, and thousands for a surgery, even after insurance coverage. And if you end up in the ER, you might get hit with a facility fee of $1,500 just for walking through the door. Meanwhile, more than 100 million Americans now carry medical debt, and hospitals are suing patients, garnishing wages, and ruining credit over it. But here's the kicker. Many of these hospitals are technically non-profits. They pay no taxes, but they'll still seize your house if you miss a payment. In countries like Taiwan or South Korea, you can walk into a hospital and get world-class care for under $50. In Turkey, doctors do home visits for a fraction of the cost of a US copay. But in America, your doctor barely sees you for 6 minutes. They're too busy inputting codes for billing. It's not about care. It's about what they can charge. Medical schools are producing fewer general practitioners because nobody can afford the debt load unless they specialize. The result? Rural communities are now full-blown medical deserts. In some counties, you'd have to drive over 100 miles to reach an OB/GYN. Pregnant women are giving birth in emergency rooms, in parking lots, even on the side of the highway. That's not a system. That's a scam. And if you've ever had to choose between groceries or a doctor visit, congratulations. You're living in the third world version of America they don't show on TV. Number 6. Transportation is a privilege, not a right. You want to know what a collapsing country really looks like? It looks like having no way to get to work, the doctor, or the grocery store unless you own a $30,000 vehicle that costs $100 to fill up every week. Because here's the truth. America has no functioning public transportation system for the average person. In 2025, if you don't live in one of the top 10 cities with a subway or light rail, you're on your own. Over 45% of Americans have no access to public transit of any kind, not even a bus. And those who do often deal with buses that don't run after 6 p.m., trains that skip stops due to staffing shortages, and routes that were slashed during COVID and never came back. A shocking 78% of all federal transportation funding still goes to highways, not transit. And what does that mean? It means the poor are punished. If you can't afford a car, you're boxed in. Want to work? Tough. Your job interview is 12 miles away. Want to go to school? Sorry, no bus. Want to see a doctor? You better beg for a ride or shell out $40 for a lift, even if your bank account is empty. And even owning a car isn't freedom anymore. The average car loan today is $738 a month, with loan terms stretching up to 7 years. Repairs? Forget it. A new catalytic converter can run you over $2,000, and good luck getting parts. Supply chains are still wrecked, especially in rural areas. Meanwhile, in so-called developing nations, you have commuter trains, scooters, tuk-tuks, subways, and buses that cost pennies. In Thailand, you can travel across the entire city of Bangkok for under $1. In Medellin, Colombia, you can ride cable cars into the mountains, publicly funded, clean, and safe. In the US, we spend billions on 6-lane highways to nowhere and then cut bus routes for budget reasons. When movement becomes a luxury and millions are left stranded in place, unable to access opportunity or essentials, that's not just inefficient. That's third world governance. Number 5. The internet is fast, if you can afford it. The idea that we're a technologically advanced society. Because when it comes to internet access in 2025, millions of Americans still live in digital darkness, not just dead zones. I'm talking about entire counties with no broadband, download speeds under 5 Mbps, and providers that charge $80 to $120 a month for basic service. That's not just inconvenient, it's devastating, especially when 90% of jobs, government services, schools, and healthcare require internet access. If you want to apply for food stamps, renew your license, attend a virtual class, or see your doctor through telehealth, you need fast, stable internet. But in the richest country on earth, 42 million people still don't have access to reliable broadband. And it's not just rural folks. Low-income families in urban areas are redlined out of service zones or priced out completely. And what do the telecom giants do? They collect billions in federal subsidies, promise to build out fiber, and then don't. There's virtually no competition. The average American has only one provider in their zip code. That means they can charge what they want, deliver what they want, and face almost no consequences. And let's not forget about data caps. You know those penalties for using too much of a service you already paid for? Imagine trying to homeschool your kids, attend Zoom work meetings, or stream a medical appointment, then getting hit with an extra $50 charge because you went over your limit. That's not innovation, that's exploitation. Meanwhile, countries like South Korea offer gigabit speeds to nearly every citizen for under $30 a month. Romania, yes, Romania, has faster, cheaper internet than most American cities. Estonia offers nationwide digital ID and internet voting, something we still can't figure out here. Why? Because in America, digital access is just another thing to monetize. It's not a utility. It's a gold mine for Comcast and AT&T. If you're poor, you're cut off. If you're rural, you're ignored. If you're just trying to live and work in the modern world, you better be able to pay top dollar or prepare to be left behind. That's not first world infrastructure. That's high-tech gatekeeping in a nation where connection is survival. Number 4. There's no such thing as emergency relief anymore. You are on your own in a disaster. That's the truth in America in 2025. Wildfire, hurricane, flood, chemical spill, heat wave, no matter what hits you, don't expect help to come. FEMA is underfunded, overwhelmed, and backlogged. In 2024, victims of the Maui wildfires were still living in hotels months later, while multi-million-dollar payouts went to private contractors, not the victims themselves. Meanwhile, in East Palestine, Ohio, where a massive train derailment and chemical explosion poisoned air and water, many residents still haven't received full relocation or cleanup support. Instead, they were told to return home while carcinogens lingered in the soil. If you think FEMA's going to show up and rebuild your life, think again. If they help at all, it's often with a loan, not a grant. Meaning, you just lost everything, and they want you to go into debt to fix it. No hazard pay, no relocation support, just red tape, bureaucracy, and a shrug. Even local emergency services are crumbling. Fire departments in small towns, often run by unpaid volunteers. Ambulance response times. In some rural areas, it's 30 minutes or longer, if anyone shows up at all. Want a shelter during a disaster? Good luck. Many counties don't even have designated shelters anymore. And the climate disasters? They're coming faster than ever. In 2023 alone, there were 28 separate billion-dollar weather events, and 2024 is on pace to exceed it. Yet the infrastructure to protect regular people is shrinking. Meanwhile, countries like Japan have disaster prep vending machines, earthquake-resistant homes, and national drills. In the Philippines, disaster zones are routinely stocked with supplies before storms hit. But in America, if your house floods, burns, or gets buried in snow, you're told to prepare better next time. But how do you prepare for a government that has abandoned its people? When your country won't even show up for its citizens in their worst moments? That's not resilience. It's neglect on a national scale. And that right there is the clearest sign that we're no longer a functioning first world nation. We're a patchwork of survivors in a system that only protects the elite. Number 3. Let's talk about something that's silently crushing millions of Americans right now. Mental health. The anxiety, the burnout, the depression. It's not just some vague crisis anymore. It's a full-blown epidemic. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. If you need real help in America today, you probably can't afford it. Nearly 57 million adults in the U.S. reported a mental health condition in 2024, but over half received no treatment at all. Why? Because the average therapy session costs $100, $250 a pop, and insurance either won't cover it or makes you wait 3 to 6 months for approval. That's if you even have insurance. And even if you do, good luck finding someone who accepts it. In most states, there's a severe shortage of licensed therapists, especially in lower income and rural areas. In fact, over 150 million Americans live in mental health care deserts. That's half the country with little to no access to help. And if you think things like anxiety or trauma don't get worse when they're ignored, just look around. Suicide rates are climbing. The CDC reported a record 49,500 suicides in 2023, the highest in U.S. history. Among teens and young adults, self-harm and overdose deaths are skyrocketing. And the answer we're given? Apps. Try meditation. Get outside more. Meanwhile, the country's pumping antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds like candy, with 1 in 4 women on psychiatric drugs, many of them without proper diagnosis or follow-up. That's not care. That's a chemical band-aid for a collapsing society. In the Netherlands, mental health services are fully integrated into their universal health system. In Norway, you can walk into a clinic and be seen by a psychiatrist in days, not months. In America, if you're poor and struggling, you're told to be strong or get on a wait list. People are breaking down quietly. They're losing jobs, relationships, sleep, and their lives. And all because they can't afford to talk to someone. That's not mental health care. That's a system that puts price tags on suffering and calls it freedom. Number 2, you can't afford to have a child. Anymore, America is now one of the most expensive places in the world to raise a child. Not just for luxury items or private schools, but for basic survival. In 2024, the USDA estimated that it costs over $310,000 to raise one child to age 18, and that doesn't include college. That's just diapers, food, housing, school supplies, and childcare. Want to know the leading reason why millennials and Gen Z are delaying or refusing to have kids? It's not lifestyle, it's math. And childcare? Oh, it's brutal. In 41 states, childcare costs more than rent. In places like Massachusetts or DC, parents are paying $2,400 a month per child for daycare. That's a second mortgage. And yet, childcare workers average $13 an hour and often live below the poverty line themselves. It's a collapsing loop. Parents can't afford care, workers can't survive on the wages, and the system just keeps fraying. Maternity care is no better. The US is the only developed country without guaranteed paid maternity leave. 0 weeks. Most moms go back to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. In 2023, 1 in 4 American mothers return to work within 10 days. And for what? So they can afford formula that costs $45 a can, or diapers that have jumped 37% in price since 2021? Meanwhile, hospitals now charge $20,000, $40,000 for a vaginal birth without complications. C-section? You're looking at $60,000 or more, even with insurance. In Finland, new parents get a full year of paid leave, a government-provided baby box filled with essentials, and free prenatal care. In France, daycare is publicly subsidized. In Japan, birth costs are covered, and if you have a child, you receive cash payments from the government to help raise them. But in America, if you can't afford a kid, you're told it's your fault. That's not family values. That's financial warfare disguised as freedom. And it's pushing entire generations out of parenthood. When starting a family becomes a luxury reserved for the upper class, that's the definition of a collapsing society. That's the final stage of late-stage capitalism. That's third world economics in a Gucci suit. Number 1, work harder, die quieter. We have built an economy where millions of people work themselves to death and are still poor. That's not an exaggeration. That's America in 2025. Over 61% of working adults are living paycheck to paycheck, even if they have full-time jobs. And nearly 9 million Americans work multiple jobs just to scrape by. Wages haven't kept up with inflation in 4 straight decades, and yet the cost of survival, food, housing, insurance, keeps rising. CEOs get richer, workers get broken, and here's the kicker. The US is the only wealthy nation where life expectancy is going down. In 2023, the average American life expectancy dropped to 76.4 years, lower than Cuba, Lebanon, and even parts of Eastern Europe. You are literally more likely to live longer if you leave. Why? Because we are overworked, undercared for, and abandoned by the systems meant to protect us. People are dying of heart disease in their 40s. Suicide is up. Substance abuse is up. We are grinding ourselves to dust, doing the right thing, and getting nothing in return. No affordable housing, no retirement security, no safety net. And the worst part? We're told it's our fault. That we didn't hustle hard enough. That we didn't choose the right career. That we should have skipped Starbucks or picked a better major. It's a national gaslighting campaign, and it's working. People are ashamed of being broke instead of being furious at a system that robbed them blind. Meanwhile, the billionaire class is richer than ever. In 2024, the top 0.1% controlled as much wealth as the bottom 90% combined. That's not just inequality, that's feudalism with Wi-Fi. You work, they collect, you suffer, they profit, and when you break, there's no one coming to help you. That's not a glitch. That's the design. In America today, hard work doesn't buy dignity. It just delays collapse. And that's what a third world country feels like from the inside. A place where labor is cheap, lives are expendable, and hope is something you're told to buy on credit. You're not crazy for feeling like it's all falling apart. You're just finally seeing it for what it really is. If any of this hit you hard, good. It means you're awake. Because the truth is, what we just covered isn't the future. It's right now. Millions of Americans are living like they're in a failed state, not a first world power. But you're told to smile through it, grind harder, and pretend it's normal. It's not. This is what collapse looks like. Quietly, slowly, system by system. But here's the part they don't want you to hear. You're not alone. You're not lazy. You're not crazy. You're not failing. You're surviving in a country that's failing you. And the minute you stop blaming yourself and start asking better questions, everything changes. So if you felt it, the fear, the pressure, the anger, drop a comment. Say, I feel it, or share your story. Because I promise you, there are millions of others who need to hear they're not the only ones holding on by a thread. And if you want more truth like this, not sugar-coated news, not corporate-sponsored spin, hit subscribe. We're going to keep exposing what's really happening. Because if we don't talk about it, they win. And I don't know about you, but I'm done staying quiet. This isn't just a video. This is a wake-up call. And now that you see it, you can't unsee it.